that partner or that ex-partner is even saying things about me that are untrue that make my kid doubt me.
So often we're raising kids with a difficult or antagonistic co-parent. We don't know how to help them in that process. We wonder if we're being the right kind of parent that they need.
In that moment when you feel like you've just been insulted by someone or your reputation is being smeared, and with the most important person in your life, with your kid, how do you, in that moment, have the presence of mind?
Today, I have a different kind of guest. It's Dr. Josh Davis, who recently wrote the book called The Difference That Makes a Difference. And he's going to be talking about how to be the kind of parent your kids really need you to be.
I'm doing work with dads about how to be the dad you want to be and have the relationships you want to have, harmonize your household. And then after she reached out, I thought, well, wait a second, this is not a space that I particularly know. And thankfully you said, well, hold on a sec, but these are also people who I want them to see the tools that there are for a really healthy relationship with your children. And
Exactly.
and so I said, okay, wonderful. Yeah, I'd love to do that. And maybe you can help me speak to what the challenges are that the listeners are hearing. And so it sounded like a really nice kind of partnership conversation to have. So a little bit about me. I studied neuroscience and psychology. I did my doctorate at Columbia. I was a professor there for a while. So I have a couple of best-selling books. The Difference That Makes the Difference that we'll talk about today is a USA Today bestseller. And then I've also started my own institute called the Science-Based Leadership Institute. But I'm also a dad of 3, and I love being a dad. And I have seen how it can really work well. And it's not that I don't struggle. It's not that the people I work with don't struggle. But I did have a wonderful role model in my dad, and I've really tried to learn from that. And I've tried to learn from the world of psychology and neuroscience and psychotherapy, because there are some amazing tools. And you can apply them in your day-to-day life. And that's the work that I and my co-author spent a couple of years trying to do to translate in this book, is how can you apply these things in your day-to-day life? All people need to know about this, but in particular right now, I'm focusing on dads because that's my life right now.
Yeah, what I really appreciated about your perspective was that I tend to see where things go wrong and am dealing with the messy breakup of stuff and the brokenness and all the grief that's related to that. And then there's this hope of repair that gets very tricky. And what I was so excited when I was introduced to you is that I think you have some answers that can help those who are looking to make that repair, that they can maybe understand why it goes wrong and what steps they could take to begin to help make it go better. So I was really, really excited about this conversation. So let's kind of launch into, what do you see happen that maybe leads to less than ideal connection between dads and their kids?
Well, first of all, it always starts from a good intention, right? I want to, maybe it's be in my kids' favor, right? Or maybe I want to teach them tough lessons, or maybe I want to support them, or maybe I want to help them navigate this difficult situation we're in, if it's a divorce, for example. It always starts with very good intentions. And we try stuff, and depending on the person, maybe a little bit of tough love here works. Maybe a little bit of coddling there works. But it's going to be different for each person in each context. And this is a game. This is a lifelong game, right? And it's one where the relationship matters to you more probably than anything else in your life, right? And you're not willing to give up. But also on the flip side, you get, well, not endless chances, but you get so many more chances than you might in a relationship, let's say at work. And so there is the opportunity to really, try stuff and just keep coming back, as long as you're willing to come back and you understand that you can, because you can always regain rapport with someone. And ultimately, what it comes down to is we are constantly, as parents, I mean, as anyone, right? But since we're having this conversation about parents, is we are constantly looking to change ourselves. How can I show up differently? How can I have a different belief? How can I have a different tool? How can I see my role differently? How can I, it's like, how can I manage my anxieties differently? So we're always trying to change ourselves, and we're always trying to change someone else, right? And not against their wishes necessarily, right? Sometimes maybe we do have an agenda they don't have, But our kids want to manage their anxieties. Our kids want to feel included. Our kids want to have love. Our kids want to form relations. Our kids want to succeed at whatever they're doing. Nobody wants to be bad. You want to be good at your sport. You want to be good in your classes, right? They may not know how. It may be defensive to feel like they're not good. But so we want to help them in the things that they want anyway, right? So we're constantly trying to change ourselves, and we're constantly trying to help others change in the ways they want to. And many people don't know how to do this consciously, but we've all had experiences where change can be quite different. Sometimes you try to change something your whole life. Like, I'm someone who always gets triggered, right, about this one thing, and I just never seem to, no matter what I do, that's just who I am, right? Or maybe I'm someone who I've always wanted to get in shape, and I just never can figure it out, and I'm never going to get in shape. And you know other people who you think can't change. Everybody has that experience. Everybody also has the experience of kind of chipping away at it, where it's like, I worked really hard at showing up maybe to do public speaking presentations or to go to events with lots of people. And I can do it, but it's not really getting me places because I'm just showing up and I'm making incremental change, and it's hard work, and I'm always fighting myself. On the other hand, though, we've all had experiences where, let's say you're having a conversation with someone and they say something to you about how to think about what your kid's issue is, and just you change in an instant and forever. Am I right about that also?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
can happen. You can. So, we talk about how change is hard and it takes forever. Sure, sometimes that's true, but it's not because it has to. So then what's the difference? What's the difference when we change, when we actually make a change, and when it's something that just fits so well that we just stick with it? There's this tremendous amount of work about that comes. So I'm going to talk about something called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I don't know if you're familiar with it
I
yourself.
have heard of it. I don't
Right.
talk about it much, so I don't think my audience is familiar with it, but I am familiar with it.
Okay. So it's, in short, a collection of tools that come from psychotherapy about how to help yourself change or to help guide others to change when they want to change. What's particularly powerful about it and useful is that the developers of NLP honed in on what's the signal versus the noise very well. So you go by, just like a little bit of history, I think helps. You go back 50 years, all these brand new psychotherapies are coming out. Cognitive therapy, Gestalt, family therapy, hypnotherapy, on and on, right? All these new things. And nobody has much research on it yet. Nobody knows exactly why they're working, but a lot of people in the world of therapy are saying they are working. They're working much better than anything we've seen. They're really focused on outcomes, not just on thinking about why have I messed up, right? So that's one shift that most people were clear on, but the rest, I'm not sure why it's working. And people are getting results much more quickly and in lasting ways. And so what's going on? So a lot of therapists at the time were very excited. They went and tried to observe and copy. And then along comes the founders of NLP, a linguistics professor and a partner of his who are very interested in studying linguistics. And they're able to say, with our linguistics tools, we can separate content from form. We can identify what are the patterns that keep repeating in language that these therapists are using and picking up on. And that's how they identified the signal from the noise. And they did a fantastic job. And so as time went on, lots of therapists started using it. Eventually, when coaching became a thing, they did. You've heard of Tony Robbins. He uses NLP for everything, right? People have applied it in marketing and sales and so forth. But it's complex. So that's why Greg and I spent a couple of years writing a book. How can you make it easy to access for anyone with no background and apply it? And so we didn't invent any of this stuff, but we took this time-tested stuff and we worked on how can you make it easy to apply in day-to-day context. And we also connected it to the research that does now exist that supports all of these tools. And so that's what it is. And that's why it's so, these therapists are people who all day, every day are guiding change. Right? They do. So, it's like they've been working it out. And so these are the tools that I'm talking about that make the difference, that help you identify how do I make that difference. So that's why there really is something here that tends to be quite different from most people listening.
That's fascinating. Okay, I didn't realize that that's what the space was on. So explain to people, what is NLP? Can you put it in sort of a thumbnail description?
Yeah. The short form is it's tools from psychotherapy that are particularly good at helping you identify what you need to change so you can change in a lasting way.
And is it with yourself or focused on someone else? Because I do know it's used in sales, for example, to make a sale, to convince the buyer that they should buy this product.
Yeah, so there are some people who have tried to apply it in transactional ways. And I think once you're getting there, without seeing it, particularly how it's being used, I don't know if I would still call it NLP,
Mm.
because there are these core beliefs about really trying to, let's say, for example, that there is every behavior has a positive intention behind it, right? If I'm really trying to help someone change in service of them. Now, there are salespeople who really have a product they believe in and genuinely believe they are helping the other person and are trying to just figure out what does this person actually want. And they're not trying to force something on them. They're trying to help them find. I've had the experience of buying stuff and leaving and saying, I just bought something I wasn't expecting to buy and I'm really happy about it. And I've continued to be
Mm-hmm.
appreciative, right?
Yeah.
They were looking out for me. If that, in that context, yeah, then there's some core aspects of NLP that are part of it. If it's
Okay.
just anything that's useful for influence could be used in a way that I might call manipulative in a one-off transactional way, but people always know afterwards they've been manipulated and then you've broken rapport and it's going to be hard work to get it back. Most relationships, especially between parents and kids, are not transactional one-off things.
Right.
It's got to be about the ongoing relationship and the trust. And if you're really using all the tools of NLP, you're building trust.
All right. Because I was under the impression it was more persuasion than it was really about building trust and alignment. That's what I'm kind of hearing you describe.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that there are definitely people who have come across NLP in that context where you have someone kind of claiming they're using NLP, but it's really kind of like a trick here or there that has to do with how do I sort of confuse someone in the moment. You could use any tools for influence. You could do the stuff from Robert Cialdini's influence book to trick someone one time. That's not the kind of communication that I'm looking for, or that the therapist, if you're really doing NLP, well, essentially you're not doing NLP if you're doing that.
Yeah, in fact, I just was listening to an interview with Chase Hughes, and he was talking about creating internal cognitive dissonance with an individual and using that as a way to leverage them into the direction. He gives an example that there was actually a study done where they went around a neighborhood and said, "You're for safe driving. In other words, you're against drunk driving. You're for safe driving." And the person said, "Yes. So would you mind putting," it was an obnoxious looking sign in your yard. Well,
Uh-huh.
I think like 80% of the group did because it went along with their a testament to themselves that they believe in safe driving. So they felt compelled to like, how can I say no? I just said I was for safe driving.
But
So
they felt like they were crossing a boundary where they didn't want to be
yeah, it
putting
was
something in their
breaching their
yard.
own ethics.
They just were
Exactly.
like they have this internal value struggle. And so,
Right.
right, how do I, yeah. So, they're going to know that they didn't like what just
Yeah.
happened. For some people, they're going to say, you know what, thanks. I did want to do something for safe driving, and you just helped me find a way I can feel okay about
Yeah.
putting it in my front yard, even though I don't like things in my front yard. There will be a percentage of people who feel that way. But there will also be the people who feel like, I don't like this. I just feel like I just
Yeah.
got backed into a corner. It's like when I'm at the
Right.
checkout counter at the supermarket and it says, do you want to help the hungry? And I have to
Oh yeah.
press
Do
a
you want to
button
add
that
a
says,
dollar to
no
your
thanks. I don't.
yeah,
It's
I
like, come on. Do you have to make me feel bad? I'm just trying to buy my groceries. Of course I want to help the
exactly.
hungry. And I do in other ways, you know?
Right, right, right,
Yeah,
right.
right.
So,
But
because it's interesting you're talking about, we do want good outcomes for our children. And one of the tough parts about parenting is it almost feels like, in a way, I don't think it's really like this, but it does feel this way. A lot of parents describe this. It feels like you're putting into something, like a project. You're helping this person become a person. And you're doing all this work over years and years of time, and you don't get to see what the outcome is. It's not like you can peek and see if the cake is baking. You don't you don't get to
yeah.
you don't get to really watch the process to know whether or not the process is going to deliver this. Because to me, the goal of parenting is to raise a healthy, functional adult, not
Hmm.
a happy adult, but a healthy functioning adult. And it's hard to know when you're seeing this child, and there's going to be periods that are really rough. I mean, I'm thinking terrible twos is never fun. Some of the teen years can get really challenging as they try out a lot of new identities and figure out what aligns with who they want to be. There's a lot of challenges that we face, and it can be scary. In those moments, you can think, I'm losing, I'm not winning this game, and I'm not for sure who I'm raising here. It feels like sort of like a black box problem. You can't look inside of it.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, so there's a couple of things there. One is, I do think for most of us, including me, I think about the future. I want to raise my kids so that whatever they're going to encounter, they're going to be ready. They're going to know how to leverage their own resources to
Mm-hmm.
and their situation to the best of their ability, right? Now, if I frame my goal that way, that's a slightly different goal, though. Now, this is a goal that is a little bit more in my control. One of the things we talk about in NLP is whenever we hear a goal is to ask, well, is it in your control? And if I've got something that's not
Yeah.
in my control, it's a setup for failure.
Yeah.
Because even if I do somehow make it happen, there's no way to evaluate it. And I'm constantly having these up and down feelings, and I don't know if I'm getting there, and I don't know where to focus. So if I'm thinking I want to set them up to be able to handle any kind of situation, well, all right, is that in my control? Well, I can teach them things like when they feel anxious, they can tolerate that. There's a difference between feeling uncomfortable and being unsafe. And so they can learn to distinguish. And I can teach them that I know that they're capable of certain things. And so they can start to learn that they know they're capable. I can teach them how to break problems into steps and to focus on the first steps. I can teach them how to learn how their communication is coming across, right? And so these are all these wonderful skills that I can know if I'm making progress. And I can, and then in addition, I personally have a goal, and not everybody has to have this goal, but I personally, when we talk about, well, schooling and it's a preparatory school and so forth, or what's the purpose of schooling to help set them up for the future? For me, it's very important also that schooling is also life, like childhood is also life, right? And so what is happening now? So it's the experiences that I want to set them up for, and also the experiences that I want to help them have right now, and the wonder of learning and exploration, and then I can use that if there are things that are getting in the way of exploring or showing up in class. There's a great opportunity for a life lesson. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I spot everything the first time and I get frustrated and I get mad and like, why aren't you doing your homework yet? But I am, because I know this stuff, I'm able to pause and catch myself and then go back in 5 minutes after messing up and then say, okay, hold on, let's try it this way. Help me understand how
Right.
you're thinking about the problem.
Yeah, and what I love about what you just said, and I wanna emphasize it because I think you did something really critical there that I'm not for sure everybody caught. And that is even my definition, a healthy functioning adult, was kind of what I call squishy.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
What's the
Okay.
definition of that? How do I know? So this is what I kind of learned from brief solution focused therapy. If I was to look through a kitchen window, could I tell if that goal was being met or not as
Yes.
an outsider? And basically, somebody hearing me say that would say, "No, I'm not for sure." I would know how to measure that looking through Carrie's window. But what
Mhm.
you said was you operationalized it. You made it, and that then you're right. You can then break it down, make it more accessible, make sure there's practice. You can even identify the outcome of the practice.
Mhm.
How did they do in this test that they felt really stressed about? Did they do the right steps to prepare for the test? Did they go and talk to the teacher about the places they were confused about with that test? I mean, you can break it
Yeah.
down and see, did they take those steps and how can I then better help them make that preparatory work happen before the next challenge? So yeah, I love that you said that because you're right. We often have these lofty goals, but if we ask ourselves to define it, like even happiness. I mean, I said I don't think that's a good goal, but what is really people saying when they say they want a happy kid or a happy adult? I bet you they probably don't know. And then as a result, you can't control what you don't know. And then even if you know what it is, can you control the way in which to make that happen?
Right.
It gets
I
yeah, so I love how you shifted it into something that is measurable, observable, and then you can also do something. There's actions you can take.
Yeah. It has to be in your control, at least enough. It has to be measurable, right? To what you were just saying. It needs to be stated in the positive, what you're moving towards, not just what you're moving away from. It's like,
Mhm.
I just don't want them to be unhappy. Okay. Very motivating. It's not that it's
Yeah.
wrong to motivate with what you're running away from, but what do you want to move towards? Because without a direction, how can you possibly plan? Right.
Right.
So what we're moving towards, right? So we've articulated that. Is it going to cause other problems in my life also to move towards this goal? Sometimes like, yeah, okay, well, I mean, if I'm saying a healthy, functioning adult, and to me that means, they have to get into the best college, well, maybe I'm creating this impossible situation because everybody knows college applications are ridiculous now, right? You
Yeah.
can't control, there's so little. And then finally, have I thought about the context that I want this? Because maybe I don't always want to be focused on them being an adult. Maybe sometimes I want to be focused on them being a kid and just play,
Mm-hmm.
right? So is
Mm-hmm.
it all
Yeah.
the time? And so I've listed 5 criteria that make up what we call in NLP a well-formed outcome. And when an outcome is
Mm.
well formed, you have very good odds of making progress. And when it's not well formed, you really don't. So just one more time quickly, it was, is it in my control? Is it stated in the positive, what I'm moving towards? Can I measure it? Could I know if I got it? Right? Have I defined the context, meaning do I want it all the time or just certain times? And will it cause other problems? Does it fit within the ecosystem of my life? Or is this going to be something that's unreal? I would need to make too many adjustments, or if I succeeded, it would cause too many other problems.
Yeah. I can hear my audience right now saying, this is really great. This is something I can personally do, but I have a partner, I'm co-parenting,
Hmm.
and this person first of all, will not understand what this is, probably is not very self-aware, doesn't have a whole lot of empathy, and loves to behave antagonistically with me. So what do I do about that situation when the kid is spending half the time with that other parent?
Yes. So step one is to do the same thing, right? But as pertains to the parent, right? You cannot control the other parent. There isn't anything that you can do to control the other parent. They will behave how they behave. But that is part of life. There are many
Yeah.
things we don't like that happen. So, given that, what do I want to do? What's the relationship I want to have? How do I want to show up? And it may be that that partner or that ex partner, I'm assuming is the context you're talking about,
Yep.
is even saying things about me that are untrue that make my kid doubt me or get angry at me, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so can I,
Yeah, or alienate them. Mhm.
right, that can, of course, happen. And, these are some of the things to kind of learn to work through. Your kid is looking to you to see how do you navigate a situation like that, right? And they might not even realize at this age, it may be when they're older and they're saying like, wow, my dad was there for me even when that was happening. What was it that he did that enabled him to, and it's okay to talk about it too. It's like, I struggle. I also am someone who struggles with things from time to time. I'm not perfect. And it's almost an invitation to the kid to not have to be perfect and to say, okay, well, how do you deal with it, Dad, when you're in this kind of situation? So what's this well-formed outcome I want to have regarding this context? It's okay. When these things come up, now, how do I want to handle it, for example? Another one is I can work on building the relationship with my kid where they are more comfortable speaking to me about these kinds of things. Where we have a little bit more of an open dialogue, where they have learned that when they speak to me, they're not going to get beat up. I'm not going to lose my cool, or I'm not going to, or even if I do, I apologize. That if they feel like I can't handle it, it's a terrible message to be giving to them because it puts all this pressure on them to handle my emotions.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so if instead we have this relationship where I'm just kind of curious about them, I'm not trying to force them to do things. I'll tell them this is what I think. Here's a story from my life. Here's what I benefit, because you also can't control your kids. Right.
Right.
But what you can do is give them great stories and suggestions and be someone they want to talk to. And it all, everybody knows, you've heard this a million times. It all comes down to being a good listener. I think what a lot of people, they might not really know how to do that. And so it's like, okay, fine, but that's not my thing. I can't do that. I don't know. I couldn't do that all the time. What it comes down to is paying close attention and realizing that you don't understand something, asking a question, letting the other person know you get where they're coming from.
Right.
It's all about meeting them where they are, one way or another, before you try to do anything else.
Right. I see 2 errors that happen all the time, and I know people don't mean to do these errors, but it's what kind of inherently the struggle kind of brings them on because it's such a painful situation. One is they end up feeling they have to defend themselves against their ex's narrative.
Hmm.
So they inadvertently do that with the child as a way to sort of say, that's not true, that's not who I am. And instead, what they don't realize by doing it is they're not being with the kid. And they're unfortunately putting the kid into a triangle in which the kid then feels like they have to choose which parent's the credible one, which one do they respect, who do they want to spend time with and like. And that they don't realize that just sitting with the child and not having to defend against the smear campaign or whatever word you want to apply to it is in itself is the antidote. Just showing up as yourself and having that incredible experience. The second problem I see that happens is that,
And I'll bet a lot of people are saying, okay, fine, but how do I do that? Because that
yeah,
sounds
well, it
impossible.
ties into the second problem. And the
Right.
second problem is that the child comes to you with lots of discomfort, and you also understand the discomfort because it's a relationship you had with that complicated parent as as a partner. And you wish you could fix it. So what you inadvertently do is that you then either move into the same stage of helplessness with the child, or you end up trying to fix it, which then inadvertently doesn't work and feels like all this fruitless effort because you can't control what you can't control. Instead of learning how to sit and grieve with the child over the losses and really
Mm.
being with them in a way that makes them feel seen and validated, and then maybe then allows them to find their own solution to the situation. Or even maybe the solution is just to tolerate a sad situation. So
Hmm.
those are the two big errors that I see people make in this that really causes a lot of problem. I know they don't mean it. I know that they think they're trying to fix it, but they don't realize that often they're making things worse.
Yeah. And I think in that moment when you feel like you've just been insulted by someone or your reputation is being smeared, and with the
Yeah.
most important person in your life, right? With your kid. I mean,
Yeah.
like, how do you in that moment have the presence of mind to be like, okay, I'm just going to be peaceful and, and be present and like actually be here with you while this is. So a few things that may help for some people, right? And I say for some people, and I say that may help because I know that there is, if you continue to work at it, you will find the difference that makes the difference. But that's where this phrase comes from. It's used all the time in NLP, and it's the title of the book. But the idea is that as you continue to unpack what's going on in your mind or the kid's mind, it starts to become obvious what you can experiment with. And starting with the idea that there is a world in which it makes sense that this kid is feeling and thinking the way they do. And there's a world in which it makes sense that you are feeling and thinking the way you do, right? And acting the way you do. First of all, it starts with a little bit of compassion for all sides that way, or at least for you and your kids, not necessarily for your ex, but the people in the room, right? I'm not saying you have to have that compassion. I know some people who have gotten to that point, and that is a great release for them, but it doesn't have to be the case for everyone. When you're able to do that and then meet your kid where they are, be thinking about that as a goal. Okay, where are they mentally right now, psychologically? Where are they? And I don't have to go and suffer with them, but I want to let them know I see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're really mad right now, or you're really, it seems like you don't want to talk to me, right? It's like even if I'm not sure, I can say it seems like, right? And they don't have to respond. It's not like we have to get into a deep conversation, or we could. But if I'm trying to meet them where they are, and I can meet them energetically too, if they're really kind of like holding back, maybe I don't charge in and intensely demand that they pay attention. Maybe I kind of hold back, or maybe they're aggravated and I can, have a little bit of energy. Like, it's like, this really annoyed you, what's going on? I can join them. I can join them in my words. I can join them by feeding back what I'm hearing them saying. Just that's a great way to let someone know you're listening. It also forces you to listen better. It's like, oh, you said you're really, I don't know, feeling alienated, right? If they use that word, use their
Right.
word, right? Don't say you're feeling alone if they used the word alienated. Say alienated because they chose their words for a reason. So feed it back. Try to be with them in that moment energetically. Actually, let them know what you think you're hearing and seeing. And they might ask you to just stop talking, right? And go away. They might find it annoying. That's not a failure,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's not a failure. None of it's failure. It's feedback. And if you love them, you're going to keep coming back. You can always regain rapport, right? But this is the kind of stuff that lets them know you're here and you're not coming in with an agenda, right? When
Yes.
somebody
Yes.
hears you If you show up and you're just like, oh man, this job is driving me crazy, right? And they could charge you with an agenda. It's be like, okay, it's time for you to like get out there and find a new job. It's like, whoa, I've got too many things on my plate, right? But if they say like, this job, like it sucks. It's driving you crazy. I don't know what's, and they just take the time to hear you a little bit. And then they're like, I've been thinking about some other jobs that you might go for. Do you want to talk about it? No. Okay, great. Let me know if you want to. Right? That's how you meet someone where they are, and then you slowly move them in your direction. We call it pacing and leading. Go at their pace and then before you lead. But you have to meet them there first. That's something you can do. That's someone, everyone can do that in their own way. And you can keep building skills to do it. Active listening, if you know anything about that, that's a great way to do it too.
Yeah. Yeah, and it actually also addresses the second dilemma, which has to do with the grief. Because if you're using their pace and they're in the process of feeling a lot of pain, that will leave them feeling seen and heard by you just sitting with them in that instead of you moving it along at your pace.
Yes, yes. And grief has a purpose. Grief is not a malfunction. Grief has a purpose, right? So if someone's grieving, if you're like, yeah, let's sit here and grieve for a minute, you know, or for however long, that you're moving their pace, and they're more likely to move out of that grief sooner, interestingly, when they feel like that's happened. Somebody understood.
Yeah. This has really been a rich conversation. I would love to jump over to the podcast extra and talk about, and this is going to be hard for me to articulate. It's a feeling. I'm going to try to describe this. What you're describing is how to sit and be with somebody. I'm trying to figure out a better way to say that. It's really tough to do that, Josh. This is not an easy thing to do. It's something that we, at least me as a psychologist, went to graduate school and then had hours and hours of supervision to learn how to do.
Yeah.
So I would love to jump over and talk about some basic steps to how to know if you're doing that versus to know if you're missing it. To kind of break this down into how to be with another person in a way that makes them feel seen and validated and kind of accepted in a safe way. But how can people find out more about you, your work, and the new book called The Difference That Makes a Difference?
Yeah, thanks. So at joshdavisphd.com, you can find out about all my work. And then specifically for dads, joshdavisphd.com/dads. And you'll see, the book you can buy anywhere, and it's a great way to get started without needing to talk to me. You'll see also with that, we've got this AI where you can talk to the book, ask questions of the book, when I'm not available also at the website. But
I love that.
joshdavisphd.com/dads. And start with the book. It's, we've gotten some great reviews. It's USA Today bestseller. I actually have read it myself multiple times because I didn't invent this stuff. I just worked on how to teach it and how to show the science behind it. And so I go through it myself regularly and use it.
I love that. That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for this. This was a really rich conversation.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode. Are you following me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube? You can find me at Kerry McAvoy, PhD. Or you can learn more about me and my resources, such as the Toxic Free Relationship Club, at kerrymcavoyphd.com. And I'll see you back here next week.